Welcome back to Between Two Racks with the Kilo Crew. On today's episode, we're going to discuss all the tools we've built for our students and coaches. Let's kick it. So before we get started, I kind of want to do a quick little breakdown of why we've developed these tools, because we started Kilo back in 2016. We really started building out, well, that's not even true. So we really did more education kind of around like the 2018 mark is really when we were moving forward with education. And then around, I'm going to say like 2020 is when we kind of shifted our focus to primarily being education. And at that point, then we were really trying to create as much as possible for our students, right? It was about that time on the timeline.
Yeah, like summer 2020.
And then I think what's really cool about our team is we have the unique perspective of all three of you being students and have being coaches in the past. And myself, I'm always dealing with our students, and now it's been years with previous companies. So it's kind of always figuring out what coaches need to optimize their systems and their programming. So along all these years, we've slowly developed different tools for our coaches, and we just wanted to kind of discuss those today because after doing our rep schemes podcast, we were getting a lot of feedback that some of you realized you were not loading complex rep schemes correctly. And we realized that it is in our databases. So now we want to go over all of our databases. So Alex, I'll have you kick us off with the exercise database.
I think the exercise database is definitely the base of everything. If you lack ideas and exercises and stuff, or you always do the same thing, then you're definitely going to be limited. It's pretty cool, and I still use it all the time. And the way it's broken up, it's kind of broken up with the way we program. So we have like the primary exercises, then we have the assistants and the remedials. So they're broken up that way. And I mean, we have how many? Over 1,000?
Yeah,
close to 1,100 at this stage.
Yeah, so you get a lot of the different variations of the exercises and stuff. We had fun filming that, didn't we?
Yeah, this database out of everything definitely took the longest because of the amount of filming.
Yeah, it probably took a year of working on it, like the filming and stuff.
And
this doesn't even count the specialty techniques. It really is just like exercises.
Yeah.
And I think a big thing that a lot of our followers don't realize is on top of what Alex is saying about the creativity when you're writing programs. Another big point we wanted to create it is we know so many of you have your own online clients or remote clients or clients that aren't always working with you. So to have access to properly performed videos, because it does take time to record all those videos. So we did the work for you.
so you can train more people.
Yeah. So in the exercise database, every exercise is hyperlinked, and then it's a public video on YouTube. So you can just grab that link, drop it into any programming software you use. So you don't need to think about it.
We did the work for you.
And it was a lot of work. That was
a lot.
So many full days of filming.
The chin-ups was the worst.
Yeah. But I'm so happy now. If we're going to add, it's only ever adding. It's never starting from scratch, because that was a pain.
I know I get contacted a lot about us doing the updates, because we will. And if you bought it, you always get the updates, but we just haven't gotten around to it this year. But we are always building out the list of what exercises we will be adding to the exercise database.
Yeah, and we even just to prove to you guys how we did this for you, is we also added exercises that we like, but that we don't necessarily use a lot, but that we know that you guys use a lot. So we wanted it to be there for you. Now, of course, we're not going to put exercise that we really don't like in it, but we really wanted to cater that product to you. So that's why there's a lot of variations, a lot of diversity, but they're all organized. So even for us, when we write programs, sometimes like you always end up choosing the same select few exercise. So sometimes to take a look at this, so, oh, true, I forgot about this. It would make sense in this context. I'll grab this exercise. So it's really good to that effect.
And I think that's why it's good to have the actual database, because you see all the exercises as opposed to saying, oh, I'll just go on YouTube and find the exercises. It'll be hard to find. But if you have the database next to you, then you really see all your options, and then you can just kind of click on the
And then when I was building out the PDF, we made it so that the table of contents, you can click. You can do long-range squats, click right on it, and it brings you to the list. And even when I was deciding how we were going to film these exercises, I considered how they were going to be used in the programming apps, because previously when we would do exercise videos, we had the cues in text on the video, or we had longer form videos and you guys were coaching through it. But then when I really broke down what these would be used for, it was really the client or yourself, you're in the gym, you just want to click on the video, you want to see kind of like a 360 around what the movement is, see anything, and then as a coach, you might have your own set of cues that you like for exercises. So we didn't put that on the video. We really made it perfect for being in an app. Okay, I just need to see what this exercise looks like.
And also the problem with the cues on it, because I remember back in California when we used to do this, sometimes you had to step back and leave more space around the exercise so you could fit. But that sometimes certain exercise you need to get closer to really see it, but you couldn't do it back then because of these cues. So. But one thing that people don't realize how ridiculously hard it is the naming of the exercise. The naming of the exercise and trying to stick to a rigid exercise name protocol or sequencing when you have such a variety of exercises. Sometimes it was kind of like a puzzle. So we're not, to be quite honest, guys, there's probably a few still that we haven't messed up, maybe, probably, because it's so many.
The reason why we name our exercises like that is this: if you do put them into a software, so like we use Train Heroic, so if you search like row, so you write row, then you'll get all the row choices, and then you write seated, then you'll get all the seated. It's a nomenclature so that when you punch it in to a software, like you can get all your options kind of like
organized.
Because like if you don't pay attention and like your row, you write, so let's say you write row, medium grip, and then seated, well then that row will not appear in your search box.
So we tried. I think we did a good job.
That's the exercise database. So again, that's, I'd say, like a programming tool. You have it when you're writing your programs. You can just search within the PDF. You click, you have the video. But then moving on to another, it's hard because I want to go to the conditioning guide. But I do want to make a point that we call this a guide versus a resource because we are providing workout examples in it. So it's more of like, it's not necessarily a full-on...
Yeah. I mean, because anyone could use that one. So even someone who's not a trainer could get it, because we have 45, 46 different exercises, but we also have 64 different workouts.
Yeah.
So, and then we go over, how you should sequence them, how you should load them, and then we give 3 different
work to rest ratios,
like work to rest ratios and stuff, and how you can progress through that. So it's pretty cool. Yeah,
So that's what I was trying to say, because we have the exercise, because we do title everything we have specifically. So the exercise, we call it a database. The conditioning is a guide, because then when we keep going, then we'll get into our resources. So it is kind of like, even the naming of everything, there's a lot of thought that goes into it and trying to explain what the tool is.
But the conditioning, like they're saying, it's a guide, so it's not a resource or a database in the sense that it doesn't provide you step by step information on how to build your conditioning session. It really is conditioning session examples that you can use right away. So that's why it's a guide. It does have like a work, but like these are conditioning workouts. Don't think of it as a energy system guide or resource, because it really is conditioning using modified strongman circuits in order to improve general fitness, general aerobic conditioning, if you want, to improve fat loss specifically, as well as general fitness. But it's not like there's no anaerobic alactic power sessions within that guide.
These are a perfect example of what we used with our general population clients in our group training in Huntington Beach.
Yes, and then like the sequencing of exercise within the circuit are built with the Gen Pop in mind, meaning that we don't have a ton of exercises to confuse the learning curve from the client. We have enough exercise within a session to create diversity and fun, but not so much that the learning curve distract from the output of the session. The exercise modes are combined together to optimize the conditioning output. So, for example, like we might go from a standing exercise to a bent over exercise just to make you a little bit more pukey and stuff like that. So it's just things like this that are considered in the building of the circuit, the exercise circuit. So it's not just that it might look like it's just at random, but it's not.
No, and even in that, it's kind of like a mini conditioning exercise database, because you do get the hyperlink to all the videos, and you get to see Alex with a little fro.
Big Alex.
But there are like all the animal walks have demos. All of the conditioning movements we use are also included in that. Moving on, let's get going into the databases. Okay. So the first one will be the training split database.
So training split database is, I wouldn't describe it as a step-by-step way of walking you through how to implement training splits, but it is a collection of our favorite training splits for each goal. So we have examples for hypertrophy, absolute strength, relative strength, power, body composition, a small section on in-season training, and then another section on introducing trainees to resistance training. Mm-hmm. And each of those have their own specific body part splits or full body splits, so training splits that best suit the train for that goal. Then within that, each training split then comes with an example training session of how that would look, or not even session, it'll have a full microcycle of how that looks in practice. So like for hypertrophy, we will show a very specific training split with a method that works well within that training split and which phase that would be in. So if it's an accumulation or intensification phase, is it suited to a novice, intermediate, advanced, and so on. So there's a ton of information. So I look at this one more as a training tool and a way to, or not a training tool, education tool, and a way to slowly integrate more and more complexity with your clients and see what produces the best results, so you know what works with who.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to look at it with all of these. Like, we're providing something for you to read on all of these topics. We're not saying, hey, here's this, throw it all in at once, but it's giving you a broader range of ideas to pull from when you're writing programs.
Yeah. And it's important to understand training splits. Like, it's an often overlooked component of program design, because like people tend to get married to one training split, but there's no perfect one training split. It really depends on the goal, the training age or skill of the trainee, and how you can better leverage this. So to understand a vast range of split, when and how to use it and for what situation is key. So the more information you have about it, the better it is to make your own decision.
Like one example is, both of these are examples of hypertrophy training splits. So chest and back, lower body, off, arms and shoulders, off, repeat. So that's split one. Split two, chest and arms, lower body, off, back and shoulders, off, repeat. Sounds very similar. but we go in, we explain what the difference is, why you would choose one over the other, what the benefits, what are the cons, and it just provides another layer of knowledge to make better decisions with.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go slightly into more details, but I think it's a good example of what we're talking about. So, for example, one of the splits in this database is day 1, chest and back. Day 2, lower body, which is more quad dominant. Day 3 is off. Day 4, we have arms and shoulders. Day 5, we have posterior chain, weekend off. Why is it in this specific order? Why not doing arms and shoulders first and chest and back on Thursday? Well, why? It's because if you're training your upper back on Thursday, the day before posterior chain, and you have deadlift in your posterior chain, forget it. Your deadlift session will suck because your upper back is demolished and still recovering from that chest and back session from the night before. So that's why we have the chest and back on Monday before the quad dominant workout, because that back demolishing session won't affect the back squat as much as it will the deadlift. So, so there's layers to the why we do certain things with these training splits.
Yeah.
And they're all explained in there.
And it's also to show people that we don't only do upper
lower.
lower. Everybody thinks that we only do that, because it's what we do a lot of. But there are.
It is my favorite.
Yeah. It's our main one, but there's other options.
I think it's a cool way to kind of get a look into how you guys view things, like with the databases and the resources. Steph, I know this one with all the posters behind me is one you will like to talk about, the Long-Term Periodization Database, because some of these can be a little bit confusing for people. So
the Long-Term Periodization Database. This could have been a course, but we decided it would just be a good database for you guys. But now we do realize that
it might still be a course.
It might still be a course in the sense that I think some people that purchased it still don't see the value behind it. They just think it's a bunch of percentages, but it's pretty thorough, pretty deep, and it's been what I've been using for years and years and years. So the thing about the long-term periodization database, it makes sense if you use undulating periodization, like the classic undulating periodization model where the undulating periodization is on a phase-by-phase perspective. So if you're using undulating periodization, you have to understand that the intensity of the mesocycle dictates everything. And because we're doing undulating periodization, because strength training, at least through the A-series primary multi-joint compound exercises, is done within a very narrow intensity window from 70 to 100%, it's important to understand that there's not a ton of variations that you can make for long-term with undulating periodization. And I talked about this previously in a podcast, but if you have one phase and you're training at 70%, which is 12 reps, and then that's your accumulation, and then you're moving on to your next intensification, and by default you think that all intensification means is a phase that's more intense than the one you did before, then you might bump it up to, let's say, 74%, which is 10 reps. Is it more intense? Yes, it is. But now, is it possible to do undulating periodization? It's impossible, because now, once you're done with your intensification 1 at 74%, which is 10 reps, and you're moving on to accumulation 2, now you should reduce the intensity, but that intensity needs to be higher than the intensity you use in accumulation 1, which was 70. So now you have to reduce to 72%. So that's only a 2% back off. But it's only 2% more than accumulation 1, which is fine. but it's only a 2% back off. So did you back off really from your intensification? No. And first of all, was your intensification really that much more intense than your accumulation 1? No. So then at the end of your macro, instead of having undulating periodization, you have the 100-year-old standard periodization model where the entire 12 weeks is basically the same intensity. So it doesn't work that way. You need to have certain jumps, certain increments in intensity to allow for enough backing off to recover from the previously trained quality, and then you can move forward. So when you understand that with undulating periodization, it really limits the margin. So what that long-term model is now we have model 1, we have model 2, we have model 3. Model 1 is well suited for the novice trainee, the trainee who has lower training age, the trainee who has typically less hypertrophy development. We have model 2, that would be your intermediate, so your middle of the pack type of trainee. And then we have model 3, which would be for more advanced training, so training with long training age, typically bigger, stronger athletes. So they need a model that's a little bit more appropriate for them. And all of these models go on a 4-year plan. So you have the starting point, phase 1, mesocycle 1. Then you have the end point, which is macrocycle 16, 4 years later. And then you have everything in between that undulates. And also what's interesting is you use the model, which is all intensity based, to dictate the training goal of the macro. So instead of you as a trainee deciding at random what will be your goal for the next 12 weeks, which could be detrimental to long-term progress if you're really random with your goals, you let the long-term model dictate what each macro cycle goal should be. And by letting the model dictate it, you're actually going to, it will lead to much greater level of success in the long run, because you let the undulation and the fluctuations of intensities play its game like it should. And then there's another element to the whole thing. There's the volume element, which is where you will truly individualize the programming. So you have low volume, medium volume, high volume. Low volume for people with either smaller training age. Okay, so if you have 0 training age, why go to high volume right away? Go to low volume, see how they're doing. If they're progressing with low volume, great. But if you have somebody that just fares better with higher volume, I've trained people like this, well, then use the high volume model. So, and then like basically you have your volume laid out for 4 years for each and every one of these models. So it's a very thorough, very complete, very, it's an amazing database if you have clients in the long term, because it takes a lot of messing around of calculations and numbers and questioning what I should focus on this next 12 weeks. It's all there. And then once you have that model, you individualize it with the volume, with the rep scheme prescription. If it's somebody who's really well wired neurally, you might use a complex rep schemes for 80% intensity, whereas somebody that's not as good neurally, you might just use a standard set for that same 80% intensity. So it really allows you to individualize. And then you have the exercise selection that will further push the individualization perspective. But people are too caught up in thinking that the intensity is a thing you need to hyper individualize. It's not at all, at least not if you're using undulating periodization. So at least now you have that answer for you that you can follow, and then you fill in the blank with everything else.
So within the actual database itself, they will get the prescribed rep scheme, which is at the appropriate volume based on low, medium, and high, and in the appropriate intensity based on where they are within the plan. And that all will obviously undulate throughout the 4 years. And if they want, there will be a prescribed rep scheme, but there's nothing stopping you swapping out that rep scheme for another one at the similar volume or intensity is as needed, but what will be included is our recommendation of how it can be done.
Yeah, because you have to keep in mind that our recommendations will follow all of the rules of periodization, which means that the volume fluctuations will work in both the accumulations and the intensification. So if you decide to go outside of our recommendations, at least make sure that you're following the rules that you guys have learned in the online periodization course in terms of volume prescription. Otherwise, you're going to mess up the whole.
And there may be rules already followed within it that people haven't learned yet. Because there's only, how many people did ASPD to? Like 50 total? Because there was only 2 courses.
Yeah, 50
A lot of people don't know about that course. Now everyone's going to start asking.
We can figure that. So if you're not one of those 50 people, you're not going to know all the rules.
And I think that's another important note to say. These are resources. These are massive cheat sheets for you to use, but you're not going to buy these and understand every specific thing that goes into what our education is. Because I know I get those emails all the time. There are plenty of people that think they just need to buy this $20, $30 download and they're going to have all the answers to the way we program and periodize things.
Still need to come to class.
Yeah, but it's ludicrous in a way, because we're a education company, so we provide education for coaches, and then the coaches come and they learn and they understand the concept. And now here's a cheat sheet to make it easier for you to program using what you've learned in the course. But to think that you're never going to do any course, you're going to stumble on that database or resource and think that you're going to understand the whole concept of people who spend time and money on learning live. I mean, it's just, that's not why these are resources for students. They're not educational tools. Yeah. That's why we have courses.
Yeah. One other thing to clarify about the long-term periodization database is this is the volume and recommendation for the A series.
Yeah.
So B and C series are not included, but we always follow within a very similar guidelines for our B and C series. So the volume isn't that.
What you can learn in the program design course.
Exactly. But just so everyone knows, it is the A series, but that is where our volume and intensities are dictated anyway. So it makes sense if you know the rest of it.
I completely understand why someone that knows nothing, if they go on our site and they buy the long-term periodization database, they're going to be like, nothing. Who do they think they are?
Like if you have no idea and you buy this, it means absolutely nothing.
But just follow it and you'll be good. You won't understand it.
You won't know what to do in the B and the C or with exercise selection.
Your A
series.
Right away, you need to understand what, let's say, 85% means.
Well, no, it doesn't say percentages.
Yeah, it says the reps.
It just gives you the rep scheme.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You have to know what that rep scheme
I forgot. Forgot about that. True. Very true. So you need to know that the
what it represents.
If you want to change anything.
Yeah.
If you just see that rep and then train to that RM, you'll do fine.
Yeah, no, I remember we didn't want to make it too easy.
Yeah. We still kept some in the tank for us.
I want to move on to another massive one, and that being the optimizing primary exercise macro cycle.
Okay, so massive is not an understatement here. So
that's the best resource, by the way.
I added up the pages. This is a 662 page document if you get all 7 resources. Yeah. So they're sold individually per lift, or they're sold as a bundle, which is the smarter way to do it. But so what this is we broke down each primary exercise outside of chin up. We didn't worry about chin up since it's always trained twice a week. It's never really an issue. But every other primary exercise, so we did squat, front squat, deadlift, overhead press, incline press, bench press, and dip. We took each of them and then broke it down to 3 common sticking points or areas of technical breakdown. From there, we then broke it down further to novice, intermediate, and advanced trainees. So in each resource, we break down the optimal microcycle setup for each lift. And then once you get into the resource, it provides exercise selection that is going to best address the exact sticking point for the level of trainee over the course of the full 12-week macro cycle, and includes the most appropriate specialty techniques at the appropriate time and appropriate location within the session and frequency within the microcycle.
Maybe we do need a course for that one.
Well, optimizing strength ratios.
So it's a lot. It's a lot, but it is by far the most intensive resource we have, and it is a plug and play.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate cheat sheet for any trainer. If you have this and the long-term periodization database, so you're following the volume and percentage prescriptions of the periodization, and then you're plugging and playing with the exercise in this based on clients' sticking points and limiting lifts, you're done.
Yeah. So basically you're using the optimizing strength ratio like concept to figure out every macro, what's the limiting factor, and then you take that database to plug in the lift that's a limiting factor, and then the sequencing and the level of the techniques and the sticking point of that specific training.
Yeah. So you can completely individualize everyone's training to the most small extent as you could think of. Like say for instance the front squat, it is broken down into they're all broken down to 3 sticking points or areas technically breakdown. So front squat, if you have a sticking point in the bottom, mid-range, or if they lack upper back strength or core stability, because very few people, if anyone, will have a sticking point in the top range of a front squat. So that is how that will be broken down. And then every exercise selection within that 12-week macro cycle is gained or is selected to try and push the strength level of the front squat with that area of sticking point or technical breakdown in mind. So it's it can be very small exercise selection variations, but has a huge carryover in the long term when applied right. So what everyone has to consider, so say you get the front squat, it is going to be your lower 1, lower 2. We're not addressing the upper body side of things because that will be addressed in whatever other one. But yeah, no, it's so thorough. It's so thorough. It took... I can't remember how long that one took. That was a bit. That was a big one.
Took forever, but to me it was such a cool project because, like Kelsey said in the intro, because we've all been students. Like Alex and I have done over 40 continuing education courses in our career, and I'm there's always. We basically wanted to produce stuff that we really wanted as students to help us out. But to me, that thing I wish I had when I was 20 years old and I started in this field, because that to me is the Pandoras Box, the key to unlocking program design and periodization's potential. But I guess, because in my head, once we release this, I'm 100% of our students going to get that because it's crazy. But I just think we didn't do as good of a job at
telling them what
explaining that we have Pandora's Box. It's here. We just didn't tell you guys. You get the key to the box by just purchasing the database. The database is crazy.
Yeah, that was a crazy one.
Well, that we do call a resource, because that is a massive resource.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then with that one, because like you said, you can buy them individually per lift, or you can buy them
as a bundle
all together. Because I have seen I think the majority of people that have purchased it have been more individual ones than the massive one, but I have had a handful of people then reach out once they buy 2 or 3 or be like, well, now I want all of them.
Yeah.
Because there is a discount if you buy them all together.
Yeah.
So that was the optimizing primary exercise macro cycles, and we have the rep schemes database.
Yeah, so the rep schemes database, I mean, just so like everything we've discussed in episode 7 of Between Two Racks, we basically have this in a database. So we have all of the rep schemes that we use, from standard to all the complex with the clusters and stage descending and everything. We explain how to load them, why to use them, where do they fit in the context of a macro cycle, how to best leverage them. So there's everything you need to know about rep schemes are in that database.
One thing that I thought was really cool, just going back to a course we had recently, and it was pretty much everyone was a kilo veteran, like a true kilo veteran in the sense that they've been around us for years. The majority of people in that class had done every single one of our courses, and it was so cool to look back at when they first started with us, and even seeing them on the gym floor, how they trained and how they're training now. But what was really cool is being in the class, and you could see that there were certain individuals that have all of our tools and they had really studied and like
know how to use
them. So in class, when it was case study time or when you randomly call on people, they had the answers. And so it's really cool to be around those students that have been around us long enough to realize that if you take the time, we have put a lot out there for you to understand everything we do. Another cool thing, going back to you guys being students, us always trying to provide the best services for all our students, is how we use resources for our online courses. So everyone that's done an online course with us knows that once you reach the end of the course, we've put together a resource for every single one. So you have a program design resource, you have the periodization resource, optimizing strength ratios, fat loss program design, hypertrophy program design, and you have all of these resources. And I know that we have students that get every single resource from us printed out, like officially printed, and they get it with the nice bound with the nice little cover, and then they have just stacks of resources.
Yeah.
And then even one of the students that was recently here, he had his kilo binder, and he was like, this goes everywhere with me. It goes on vacation with me. I always keep it with me. So it's so cool in the sense to know that there are those of you out there that are taking advantage of everything that we put out for students to use.
Well, everything's been built with making their lives easier.
Yep.
Like, make people more efficient at creating better programs. That is the goal.
Yep.
So the more efficient you can be, the more people you can train, better businesses.
And the thing is, it's a no BS approach, right? It's not like it's all based off of years and years of experience and perfecting that system. So it's not like we read a book yesterday,
and then just
thought about it,
yeah.
wrote down something, and here it is. It really is based off of experience.
Yeah, we haven't got a resource of how to use calisthenics within the gym setting.
Yeah, no, that would be
it wouldn't be our forte.
would not. But that's a good point, because we are sticking to what we're best at.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
I don't think any one of us has the ability to fake anything. So we're just going to stick to who we really are.
Yeah.
So we've gone over the exercise database, the conditioning guide, training split database, rep scheme database, long-term periodization database, optimizing primary exercise macro cycle resource, and then the fact that every one of our online courses has resources. Yes, we are always still thinking about other databases and resources to make, but this year we kind of have a few other top priority projects that are up on the list for us. So I don't know if we kind of want to discuss that a little bit as we're on here, because I'm sure a lot of you listening are our students. So I'll kind of go over where we are right now with projects. So 1 second before we continue to wrap up. Change of topic. So we recently, a couple weeks back, did the maximal strength and speed strength intensives for the last time live. We will be working on putting those online. So do you have anything you want to say about putting those online?
I mean, it's sad in a way, because, you know, we just taught these courses and the feedback was really good. People were saying how much they like it and on and on. So on one end, it's like, it pains me to take it out of live courses, but we took it out of live courses because we feel these topics are so niche that we just don't have a lot of people registering. So now they're going to be online. But of course, because the course is online, it needs to be a little bit more streamlined. It needs to be way more targeted, a little less fluff, straight to the point. So now we're working on modifying the slides to make it fit for the purpose of an online course.
Yeah, because I think that's one thing everyone always thinks, well, you just taught it. Aren't you just going to go stand in front of the green screen and film the same thing? But it is never that when we build an online course. It's truly making it so that because delivering something online is completely different than delivering something live to students that are in front of you, that you get to interact with, that you can find where everyone in the class is at and make sure the content then moves forward where it needs to move forward, versus putting it online. Anybody is going to jump into that course.
Yeah, online there's no nuance. When I'm teaching it live and I know the people in the crowd and I look at their faces, I understand when they're not following something, when I need to re-explain a topic. But online there is zero feedback. We don't know who's buying it. We don't know the people at all. So it needs to be like very unambiguous, very to the point. So that's why it's always it's not more demanding, but like it requires a different approach to build a slide for an online course. So it's not like I'm going to take these slides and we're recording tomorrow and here is the same content for a third of the price.
Yeah, it has to be even more systematized. Yeah. So there can't be as much room for interpretation. It has to be there. This is a system of how to do it. Could there be other ways of doing it? Yes, but we're not explaining that now because this is not the format or the platform to do it on.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point to bring up, because we have our Strength Society forum for anyone who's completed education with us. And a lot of the times questions get posted in there from someone that's maybe done one or two courses with us and not understanding the whole, what we teach is a system, but there are times to break rules, to change the system and to adapt the system and to make modifications. And even though we teach it one way, doesn't mean that we don't hope you to find your own level of changing it and to optimizing it.
Yeah. And that forum also is a double-edged sword, and I talk about it with the crew all the time. That forum is tough because, like Kelsey said, you might have one person that bought one online course once, like in 2019, and they're in the forum. And in that same forum, we have guys that not only did they buy every online course, they did every live course. They know all of our content. So when somebody who did one online course asks a question about, let's say, sports performance, well, how am I supposed to answer that with the depth of what we teach in the sports performance to someone who's done one course when we have, like, let's say 150 people paid for the full-blown course then came? So I feel very uncomfortable in explaining all of this. So that forum is a little complicated because we have this wide range of people in it. but just understand that use that forum to ask targeted questions about the courses that you've done, or very general question about Kilo in general. But this platform is not a continuing education on all facets of Kilo, because it would be extremely unfair to the people who actually spend the time and money.
Yeah, but it's a great resource. They can go in and other students can answer, like provide feedback and provide their perspective on things as well.
Of course.
Yeah. So we have that as a project. Another big project that has kind of been on our radar all year that we're trying to move forward with is the roster. So that's everyone that gets personalized programming with us. And one thing that I'm really excited to introduce, and we'll actually be meeting about that this week and putting one on for the end of this year, is OTAs. So anyone that trains online with us will have the option to attend. We'll probably do 2 per year, OTAs. And what that will be 2 to 4 days where they're coming to Kilo. It's included in their membership, and we're going to assess them. They're going to train. You'll have sit down with your coaches, whether you're doing nutrition with us, nutrition and or programming with us. You'll sit down with your coach, have one-on-one time. And I think that's just something that's missing in terms of really being able to improve the results we're getting with our online clients and also further the individualization of it. So this will be for anyone that trains online with us, included in the membership. But we are also considering, because we've had a lot of people reach out, the option for those of you that don't train online with us but want to come get assessed and train. So the schedule will look a little bit different, but those will be adding. We're hoping to add the first one the fall of this year, most likely October, November. Outside of that, for projects, so we have the roster, we have the max, the speed, and then
specialty technique.
Yep. So here we go again. So the specialty technique that is in October of this year will be the final live occurrence of the specialty technique seminar. So we will be moving this course online as well. But again, it'll be completely restructuring it because we'll most likely be delivering it in multiple online courses. So breaking down the specialty techniques, eccentric, concentric, and then them having their own online courses. It's sad because
that was a fun course.
It was so much fun. But on top of it, we know that when the students come here and we're able to show them the proper application of going through the specialty techniques. So this course will be filmed like the MAP assessment course. We will be in the gym. We will be showing the execution of the specialty methods, going over how to load them. And
the ability just to feel it for yourself, to know what your client's going through. It's huge.
And then just to have like we've talked about this before, but when you're here live, just having someone to look at you, correct you, do all that stuff. It's so different.
Yeah, especially with these, because these are advanced techniques that we're going to go over. But that one will most likely, I know I'm going to start getting a bunch of inquiries when this course is going to come out, but the specialty technique will most likely be end of this year, 2025. So it's not something we're still focusing on that live seminar in October being the final live specialty technique seminar and all of the other projects. We have Europe coming up, so we're going to try to get ahead of ourselves on podcasts so we can keep talking to you guys weekly as we're out and about. Anything else?
Yeah, we also have one more project for 2025 education.
Oh, yeah. So regarding live education, we release the schedule for the following year in August. So that is our goal again this year, to release the 2025 schedule in August. But again, we'll be sitting down as a team and discussing our plans for what our live education will look like next year. And regarding our body composition specialty, we will be doing a complete restructure, remodel of what that looks like.
Yeah, so the hypertrophy intensive and fat loss intensive will disappear. So this October,
That's a lot.
this October, it's the last time that these two courses will be happening. And then in 2025, we'll have a live course called Body Comp, where we're going to cover how to optimize body composition as a whole. So it's going to be a little bit more general, not as targeted. And then we have the 2 online courses for a targeted approach to fat loss and hypertrophy. But the live course will be a little bit more general, because at the end of the day, what body comp means, it means improvement in muscle mass and improvement in body fat mass. So they're both very intertwined. So it's not like they're complete separate entity. So we want to.
And it also goes back to, it's not that we didn't like the courses as they were, but our education has come so far where we didn't used to have all of these courses online. So now we have these courses online that we need to change the way the live courses are. So as a whole, our education continues as
it's more comprehensive. So everything builds on the other. We always try. I mean, that's one of my obsession. I try to have the least amount of crossover possible. It's not always doable.
There will always be crossover.
It kind of has to, because up to a certain point, strength is strength. But I try to make it as complementary as I can. So that will be the goal again with the body comp. So like the live course can help you guys better understand the online hypertrophy and online fat loss.
Yep. And then I know we have a few other things to discuss for next year's schedule, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's, we should bring that up.
We'll discuss it first.
Okay, so that was a little bit different of an episode today, but we wanted to take the time because we know a lot of you might not even realize everything we have available to all of our students. So it was just a good way to kind of go over all of the tools. I always like to say we've provided a massive toolbox for our coaches. So get these, add them. Regarding pricing, we always try to do it to make it reasonable for you guys to be able to add them to your toolbox. Thank you for your continued support. We know there are so many of you out there that have every single one of our databases, free downloads, everything we have available. So thank you for your continued support as well as listening to our podcast. So fam, we'll see you next time.